This past weekend, I booked a flight from Las Vegas to Virginia, and right after I booked it, realized it was the wrong flight and immediately canceled. The airline I was using sent me a cancellation email including the following. Keep in mind, if you canceled within 24 hours of initial ticket purchase and at least 2 days before departure, we'll process your refund automatically. This was followed by another bullet point stating, if you booked a basic economy fare, your ticket is non-refundable and non-changeable. I was confused since I had thought I had booked a regular economy ticket that it would not be refundable, so I gave the airline a call. The call went well, and the man on the phone said that it would be refunded and eased my worries, and then I talked to my boyfriend, and he said that it would probably be best if I got some kind of verification, some written verification that it would all take place. So that's when I called again. So when I called back again, a few things were running through my mind. Oh no, what if the same guy that I just talked to gets transferred to me again, and I basically look like someone who's nagging all of these people? What's he going to think? Are they going to agree with me and give me some written consensus? What if they don't? Do I have to talk to some higher up? Like, what is going to take place here? It was upon thinking about all of this that I thought of this whole Karen idea, and about the fact that I desperately did not want to be one. Would they immediately ride me off if I decided to pry a little bit more? Would it be wrong to pry? Obviously, I'd be respectful, but what if it causes unnecessary problems and makes people irritated with me? For those of you in the service industry, I'm sure you and everyone else has dealt with plenty of Karens in the past, and for those of you who don't necessarily know what a Karen is, here are a few different definitions. A type of interfering, hectoring white woman, the self-appointed hall monitor, unloosed on the world, so assured of her status in society that she doesn't hesitate to summon the authorities, demanding to speak to the manager or calling the police, for the most trivial and often wholly imaginary transgressions. Specific type of middle-class white woman who exhibits behaviors that stem from privilege, belittle service industry workers, is anti-vaccination, and carries out racist microaggressions such as asking to touch black people's hair. Karens are moms, pushy ones. They share corny inspirational quotes on Facebook, buy merchandise inscribed with love, life, laugh, and love to ruin teenage fun. At a baseline, a Karen is a white woman who uses her privilege to get what she wants, usually disrespecting others in the process. I originally started researching this topic as purely from a feminist lens, and that is most likely my privilege also speaking here. I had my experience on the phone, and I thought about how many women who I had called Karens in the past turned out to be really nice people. All these people that I had previously thought were Karens that I didn't give a chance but turned out to be amazing people. They were just bolder women who demanded action and were trying to get what they felt like they deserved. But this topic goes way deeper than that. First, let's break down what we mean by privilege. Privilege is defined as a special right, advantage, or immunity granted or available only to a particular person or group. Karens are stereotypically white, and we catch that all the time on camera. That's not just me saying it anecdotally. I'm not the first to discuss the advantages that white people have in the US and all over the world, but I think it's important that we recognize that that is a privilege that Karens tend to have. Karens are white women who historically have been valued more than people of color and minorities. That advantage showcases a unique position that a lot of middle-aged white women have taken a hold of. And I say middle-aged because Karens statistically are between their 40s and 50s, and that's really just the fact that the name Karen was most popular in 1965, only third after Lisa and Susan, making it an easy name to use and identify these women. It's also important to note that most of these women are upper middle class. Status also ties into this idea of privilege and the fact that a lot of these women who are in a higher class of society believe that they are valued more or they should be worth more. There are a ton of different ways that we can describe who a Karen is and what her deal is, and I think that now we've primed ourselves and we're ready to dive deeper into the origins of the Karen and how it even took place. The term Karen was used in a bunch of different places in the late 2010s. In a comedy special by Dane Cook describing that one friend nobody likes, a Reddit post detailing a creator's supposed ex-wife, and calling women who call the manager and spit in the faces of service workers a Karen. Before the last few years, it was basically just used as a term to ridicule entitled people who take jabs at service workers and make their lives harder or use excessive force to get what they want. And now the Karen meme is not only racially charged, but it's a term that is used to describe people's whiteness to them and their privilege. The name Karen is an unfortunate one to have. As I said before, Karen was one of the most popular names of the 1950s and 60s, and Karens today could very much well be Lisas or Susans. But Petula Dvorak describes it as unfortunate, but it's progress. Until the Karen persona was born, memeified, and applied to high-profile incidents of racist behavior in public, there wasn't a shorthand way to explain the virulent strain of whiteness to white people who'd never bothered to understand black wariness. Karens are now being filmed and viewed time and time again and being exposed to the public as women who batter people who don't give them what they want while taking jabs at minorities. Visuals of Karens exploiting their privilege when things don't go their way have become internet shorthand of late for a particular kind of racial violence white women have instigated for centuries, following a long and troubling legacy of white women in the country weaponizing their victimhood. Let's expand on that. White women have historically used their frail mentality, albeit designed by men for men, for protection, and to incite violence on those that they believed were of lower status. With the rise of cell phones in our back pockets, we are able to film these women and punish them for doing so. White women represented the good and moral parts of American society and were to be protected at all costs, making it easier to hurt black men and women who were directly affected by this way of thinking. For example, African American women who were raped by their slave owners were seen as a threat to the wives of these landowners and were subjected to more scrutiny. It's important to note that white people, specifically white men in the US, have always had their say valued more over people of color and minorities. It's one of the main reasons why white men and women have this inflated sense of privilege and belonging. For example, if you give a child a lollipop in a room of children, they cherish that treat and the other kids envy it. You give every child a lollipop afterwards, and the child who had gone gushing over their treat is now suddenly like everyone else, and might feel a sense of entitlement to get another lollipop, or 3 or 4. The lollipop being privilege in this case, of course. The use of a Karen-like term is demanding accountability for white people in our society for our increased level of privilege. With a crazed history of white people policing black people in neighborhoods and places of work, likely a result of white redlining to keep minorities out of places they believed were only allowed for them, it gives others a chance to reconnect and see the harm in such practices. But this also raises the question of the environment we've set up for ourselves. By memeing on entitled white women, are we creating an environment for Karens to exist simply because that means she stands as a reminder of what not to do? New Jersey Assemblywoman Angela McKnight noted on the ubiquity and near normalization of these memes. This behavior is becoming so common now that we simply refer to these racist people as Karen and let it go, she said. I can't just do that. I put myself in Tamika's shoes, and I know it had to take a lot of restraint for her to endure what she went through today. I thank her for being the strong black woman that she is to remain calm and reserved during the entire ordeal. The same sentiment was echoed by Cam Buckner, a member of the Illinois state legislature who was harassed by walking out of a store wearing a mask. It is an indictment on the whole of society for creating a climate where this is normal and this is okay, he added. I can't help but think of the dangers that are inherent for a number of black men who are just adhering to the mask rule and by doing so look like they are quote-unquote up to something. Racial inequality has been around for hundreds of years, and by allowing Karen-type language to flourish, we're no longer giving away to pushy moms who share corny inspirational quotes on Facebook and love to ruin teenage fun. We're continuing to forward this notion that white people can't take minorities seriously. Karen is a term that's embedded with racism, homophobia, xenophobia, and a multitude of other prejudices. It's a term that continuously percolates through modern media every time we hear a woman yelling at the Starbucks cashier for giving her 2 pumps of vanilla instead of 1, the screams of, "Can I speak to your manager?" or "You need to leave or I'll call the cops." It lies in racist undertones, and it's consistently used as a scapegoat for white women to try to hold on to their diminished state of power, and it's not as much of a joke as you think it is. Karen Anderson of the Chicago Tribune says, "These incidents are serious. They speak to systemic and reflective racism. So why diminish them by attaching them to some jokey social media fun or a silly meme?" It's also important to note the effects of Karens on a systemic and social level, but also on a personal and individual level as well. Stephanie Younger writes, "While white women have the privilege of simply being called a Karen for enforcing oppression against marginalized people, black women and girls are dismissed as quote-unquote angry, aggressive, and confrontational when we speak up about the injustices that we experience." When Linda Clemens, CEO of Sisterpreneur, tells white women friends to use their voices to speak up against Karens, Kens, and white supremacy by using their white privilege to form a human barrier, yes, it's a good thing to stick up for others and advocate for this kind of thing, but we don't really understand the gravity of the situation here. White people feel safer acting antisocially in public because there is less of a pervasive threat of injury or death as a result, he said, whereas a black person can get killed for jogging or for opening their front door. For that, I am trying everything in my power to understand the struggles of minorities. I know that as a white person, I can protest and I can stand up for my friends and I can do everything that I can and still go home and not have to worry about it. And that sucks, and that's a crazy reality of being a white person in the US, and I hate that that has to be something that my friends think about when they walk home, or my friends think about when they do anything, because they're just scrutinized for just going about their daily lives. Widen the lens, and every white woman could be a Karen if she's perceived as taking for granted the advantages bestowed by her skin color and ignoring the labor and suffering of others. To end off, I wanted to explore the argument that the Karen term is sexist. I've read a ton of articles describing this, and there's a very interesting thing that all of them have in common. I found that while most of them have decent arguments and are respectful, all of them are written by Caucasian women. This isn't to say that there aren't articles or research papers done by people of color that I haven't looked into. There are. On my initial run-through, though, all of the articles that are defending a sexist position over a racist one are white women. You begin to wonder why a lot of the conversations that are disregarding racial factors are from people that happen to be a little bit more privileged. Let's start off with one of the biggest arguments. Why do women go viral for Karen-like activities more than men? Men have another name, either Ken or Kyle, that is used to describe the same activities that Karens are notably scrutinized for. But you're much less likely to see a version of a Ken or Kyle story on the media, much less described as a Ken or Kyle. I doubt a lot of you have even heard of the term Ken or Kyle referring to the same activities of Karens. Now, why is that? Why do we resort to calling women Karens and having a specifically gendered term, whereas all men are just generally considered assholes if they do the same thing? I wanted to look into Ken and Karen behavior, specifically the more common crimes that the two commit. And you start to see a clear line between social and antisocial behavior. It may be that calling perpetrators of these incidents by the gendered term Karen is a tacit acknowledgement that the form of acting out they are engaging in is one that is more frequently designated as an appropriate or expected form of antisociality for women. According to a report released back in 2010 by the United States Department of Justice, white females of all ages had the lowest conviction rates of any racial or age groups. Males were convicted of the vast majority of homicides in the U.S., representing 85.9% of the total number of offenders. Males also constituted for an average of 85% of arsons, burglaries, and robberies. Now, women? Females were more likely than males to be the victim of intimate killings at 63.7% and sex-related homicides at 81.7%. Males were also 7 times more likely than women to commit murder in 2008. It's been studied time and time again that women are much less likely to engage in physical altercations than men and are more likely to try to negotiate or talk their way out of things. Research has actually suggested that men who get angry are perceived as strong and decisive, while women are more often seen as hysterical. That, Dudley said, could go some way in explaining why Karens seem to trigger more social media viewers than Kens. Another thing that ties into it is, surprise, surprise, privilege. That's right, we're bringing it around again, but this time in the context of men and women. Men have always reported and are statistically more confident in the workplace, willing to push forward to get what they want and fake it till they make it. This was only possible because of the centuries of lost opportunities for women and the fact that we've only been regarded as equals for a few decades. And even then, we're still seen as inferior in the workplace. Women have struggled with confidence in the past because we weren't given the ability to push the boundaries in the same way that men have. We were only given the right to vote in the last 100 years, and our right to bodily autonomy has just been stripped out from under our noses. Can you think of a single procedure that's banned from men? Is sex demonized for men? Are men the ones on birth control? These boundaries are stricter and harder to break for women, meaning we are the targets of a lot more harsh criticism when we finally break out of those stereotypes because we haven't had the ability to make those mistakes and improve from them. Society is used to men making a fuss and tearing shit down when they don't get what they want. But I theorize that we are much less used to women acting out, which is why we receive so many more clicks. This isn't excusing racist behavior at all. It's just exposing the fact that we aren't used to women having loud voices that may even be louder than some men's.
What is los?
So, Karen is more popular than Ken. But is the word Karen a slur? No, of course it's not. God, Jesus. That argument isn't based in any real facts or evidence at all. What defines a slur, Merriam-Webster says, an insulting or disparaging remark or innuendo, or shaming or degrading effect. As for the suggestion that Karen is now a slur, says Sanchez-Gill, the measure must be of material harm. Being named Karen, as far as we know, has never blocked a person from getting a job the way some ethnic-sounding and black-sounding names have. I'm not going to go any further, just addressing that for the people in the back. What about the fact that the term might be harmful to women? Gwen Snyder, a Philadelphia community organizer, tweeted that it had been co-opted by white boys who stole it and turned it into code for bitch. Yes, being dubbed a Karen could be as a result of mental health issues or stress caused by the pandemic, etc. Karens have blown up on the internet and have lost their jobs, and some of them may not have been necessarily racist. But we have to remember the origin here. The Karen character serves as a reminder to support people who are being ignored or overlooked, says Sandler, and to use her Karen powers for good. She included it in a recent talk she gave as an example of how everyone, not just Karens, can learn to be more mindful of others. The only way we'll help our societies to become fully equal is if we're willing to speak out for other people who have more to lose by speaking up, and Karens are known for their voices. At the end of the day, Karen is not a catch-all term to describe all women, it's a term used to describe behavior. I started this video research aiming to find a reason for why I felt like I needed to protect myself against people using the Karen word on me. And I was doing this without understanding the fact that white women have consistently used their privilege against people of color for generations. In fact, upon realizing that I might be acting like a Karen on the phone, I specifically took actions to not be that. I was careful to be polite and respectful and wasn't demanding, and all in all, it might have been a better scenario, whereas if I may not have had that stereotype in my head, who knows, maybe I would have grown up a little bit more selfish. I'm doing my best to educate myself, and I hope you are too. I know there are problems that we need years and years to solve, and I think that educating people is the first step in the right direction. It definitely won't be easy, but I hope by sharing some thoughts, I open your eyes to some new wave of privilege that you might have, or a new way that you can interact with people that may not be as harsh. Karen in the back, I'm talking to you. You can find all the resources that I used in this video down below, as well as all of my socials and my podcast and website and all those things. I hope you can join me on my next deep dive, and thank you all so much for watching. Subscribe if you're new, and with that, this is Little Bird signing off.